This is J.G. Hertzler. You're listening to NX70. This is J.G. Hertzler. You're listening to NX7062 podcast.
Okay, well, I'm going to assume that played, and I'm assuming I'm live. And hi! Oh my gosh, I think my Friday the 13th just kind of took the weekend off and decided to kind of hit me up now instead of then, because it's just been one of those days all across the board, including obviously getting here to you, because everything was set up perfectly and ready to go. And then I had an issue with Google that forced me to restart the computer, and then whatever, we're here. Hi. Like I said, it's just been, oh, hey, domestic, thanks. I was wondering because I heard nothing. Usually I hear JG, so thank you for letting me know that played. As you can see, we are just having technical difficulties left and right here. Hey, Travis, how are you? Thanks, guys, and thank you, because I know my ever faithful companions that you'll forgive the edges of my green screen and such, because if I start playing with it now, then all you'll see me do is just try and tweak this, and it's just not as important as hanging out with you guys here on a very chilly Monday night. Here on the East Coast, we're finally starting to kind of feel the time of year that it is. You all know I have to give you a weather report because I don't know where you guys are, so we are starting to feel like, November. So it's gotten chilly. One of the reasons I'm thinking about moving to LA is sort of tired of being chilly. I kind of like my warm weather and I like my beaches, and I think I'd like to be on the beach more than 3 times a year. So, but anyway, we're just here to yip yap about Star Trek. I literally was racking my brains all week trying to think of a new topic for the show, and I don't know. I think my brain went on an early holiday vacation because I just had nothing. I got nothing. So I just figured I'd come and hang out with you guys, and we would just talk about whatever Star Trek you wanted to talk about. I mean, you all know Enterprise is my absolute favorite of all 5 of them, although Discovery is getting amazingly good. I don't know. Let me know if you guys are watching Discovery. I try not to do spoilers. And it's funny, I actually had to wait till Friday to watch last week. So I'm usually one of those like up, awake, out of bed. Oh my God, it's Thursday. Have to watch Discovery before any of it gets spoiled. But in a way, I was actually glad that I saw the thing about the Captain Nog, or not the Captain Nog, about the USSS Nog, because I was all excited to see it. And then, they pan in the opening sequence and they run across a Voyager. And hi, Magic Lasso. Thank you so much for joining us. Always so good to see you. We're just chatting about general Star Trek stuff. And I know Magic Lasso is kind of new to the realm of Star Trek. We are very good friends, and I support Magic Lasso. I go and watch Magic Lasso's videos here on YouTube. I suggest anybody that enjoys comic books, especially DC comic books, go check out Magic Lasso and subscribe to his YouTube channel. But he's just new to the Star Trek thing, so I just absolutely love the fact that you're with us, Magic Lasso. Thank you so much. Okay, so domestic is Central Coast Pismo. Oh, yeah, okay. Must be nice. I could use some warm coastal breezes as I sit here in my office and it's chilly. But anyway, as I was saying about Discovery, they're panning, there's the Voyager. Oh, whoop-de-doo, there's a Voyager in the future. Okay. And if I hadn't known that there was going to be a USSS Nog to look for, I would have completely missed it. Anytime, Lasso. I would have completely missed it. So I'm glad that I saw the spoiler about the USS Nog making, hopefully, its first of many appearances in the Discovery universe. And it is, in case you guys hadn't heard, because you haven't, looked at anything Star Trek on social media in the last couple of days, it is an Eisenberg class ship. So I just think that is so amazing. And in fact, Trek News had a really great article about it where they actually reached out to Melissa Longo, Aaron's widow, so for comment, and Melissa had some lovely things to say. Again, Magic Lasso, bringing you up to speed. There is a new Star Trek. It is called Star Trek Discovery. It is very good. Not what I would suggest for the uninitiated, only because you just wouldn't get it because it's so far, it's so far entrenched in the 5 series that came before it. But Aaron Eisenberg, who was a friend of mine and a convention staple for so many years and beloved by all the fans, played a recurring role in Star Trek Deep Space Nine as the Ferengi Nog. And he was wonderful in the role, and he's an amazing human being, and he passed away. It was a year ago in September that we lost him. He passed away. And he was amazing. And I still get a little emotional talk about it. I actually had a chance to talk to him the end of August. He answered a question for the podcast last year, and that was the last time. Yeah, that was pretty much the last time I got a chance to talk to Aaron. And he was great, and he was so supportive. And he even invited me onto the 7th Rule podcast to talk about Enterprise, which I've reminded Ryan Husk about many, many times. So if the 7th Rule ever does actually get around to reviewing Enterprise, I have a standing invitation to go there and talk to them. So that's pretty amazing. But Star Trek paid a tribute to Aaron on this past week's Discovery. They created a ship and they named it the USS Nog. And for Aaron Eisenberg, they made a new class of vessel. It's called the Eisenberg class vessel. So that is what we're talking about, Magic Lasso. So you are now up to speed. Yes, he played a Kazon on Voyager. All right, let's bring Travis up to speed. Yes, and I've actually seen those episodes of Voyager. But Travis, I'm not a Voyager fan. We don't talk a lot about Voyager on this show. I will bring it up. I will mention it. But if I've ever had to talk specifically about Voyager, I actually bring people on to talk about it for me, because just never been a Voyager fan. I don't know why. It just never resonated with me. I think there's some amazing performances. I love Jerry Ryan as 7 of 9. And I'm actually glad that I've been catching Voyager on the Heroes and Icons channel, because that way I was getting some background information that I needed for when she showed up in Picard. Things that I didn't know, like Icheb. I didn't even remember or realize that there were Borg children. And so I'm kind of glad that I've been kind of catching up with Voyager, but I'm still on the bottom of my list. It's actually under the animated series. I mean, a lot of people don't talk about the animated series. A lot of people don't like the animated series. Voyager is actually under the animated series for me. I like the animated series. So what do you guys want to talk about? We are caught up on Discovery for the most part. I don't want to delve too deeply into Discovery because I will eventually have like a really solid guest podcast with guests, and we're going to really talk about Discovery, the LGBTQ angle. Both the non-binary and transgendered characters have been introduced, so I really want to obviously have a show, maybe have Randy back on. I asked people to come on the show tonight. I got stood up twice. Well, not stood up, but I got turned down twice. It's a good thing I don't really have too much of an ego when it comes to people telling me no, because I couldn't find any guests for tonight, hence why this is just potluck. So if anybody has any questions or comments, or anybody needs to know anything, just let's just chime in. I mean, I'm all here for all of y'all, as we used to say in Nashville. I used to work in country music. So every now and then I kind of lean back towards my Nashville days, because Nashville is, outside of Las Vegas, I've been in Nashville the most. Working on LA, because if I make it out to LA again at the end of December, it will be 3 times in LA. But I think Vegas I've been to at least 8 times. 3 Star Trek conventions, and then a bunch of times before that. Okay. Let's see. I like the episodes of Enterprise where the crest to go up on the catwalk. Somebody actually I just saw something in one of the Facebook rooms about the catwalk. And hold on one second. Lasso, can you repost the question? Because I didn't see it. I see something from Travis saying something. Hey, I was going to see if you knew that, but Lasso, can you repost the question for me? Because I don't see it. I don't know what happened. But that would be awesome if you could repost it, because I will absolutely answer it. And I'm going to vamp and talk about the Enterprise catwalk episode. Somebody just posted on Facebook today about that episode, wanting to know if the nacelles had two separate catwalks and whether the crew was spread out between the two catwalks. But I think the whole point was that there were 83 people plus their visitors, because they had those aliens that were with them on in one catwalk. That was the whole point, is they were all in one catwalk. Okay. So Magic Lasso asks, yes, I'm a newbie to Trek, and he wants to start watching Trek. Where he wants to know where should he start, because it's confusing. You are allowed to say Star Wars on this podcast. I am also a Star Wars fan. A little emperor. He's always in front of my desk. All right, guys. So he wants to know where he should start. But I get what you're saying about. All right, real quick. Ditto, domestic. I love Giorgio. Okay. So let's see if we can help Lasso out. Because I get what you're saying about the Star Wars order. There's what they call for Star Wars the machete order, which is just basically how to watch the movies, have them make sense, and not actually have to watch Phantom Menace. I don't remember what the order is, but somebody actually sat down and figured out a way that you could watch. This was before the sequels. This was before Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker and all that. But when it was just the six, somebody sat down and figured out a way you could watch all six of them, show them to somebody who's new to it, and actually skip Phantom Menace, so that you didn't have to sit through the whole midichlorians thing. And watch the Queen hit on a 9-year-old kid, and vice versa. I think. And I actually did a show on this a while ago. I wish I could remember. I wish I had my notes handy. I think you should start at the beginning. I think you could do TOS, TNG, and all the way up. Yeah, and definitely don't start with DS9. Okay, start with TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. That's interesting. You would say, well, see, here's the thing. Why not start with Enterprise? This is why I wouldn't start with Enterprise. Because there's a lot of inside jokes in Enterprise that you're not going to get if you don't have a background in the rest of it. So I would actually save Enterprise, because there are just so many little nuances that I watch it. I mean, stupid stuff, but still really funny. There's a First Contact reference in Carbon Creek, which cracks me up every time. Trip says there's a statue, it completely cracks me up. I would honestly suggest maybe not an order, but episodes to watch. So I would never tell somebody you have to sit down and watch all of TOS, then all of TNG. But I think you should watch it, TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine. Personally, I'd leave out Voyager, and then Enterprise. But just specific episodes to kind of get a flavor for them, as opposed to skipping around with the skipping around. It's not like Doctor Who. See, here's my thing with Doctor Who. I came into Doctor Who in 2005. I didn't like Doctor Who until I saw a David Tennant episode. Then I went back and watched all the Eccleston episodes that led up to Tennant. And I am completely caught up with Doctor Who as far as 2005 to now. But there's still stuff that I don't get. But there's also 50 freaking years worth of almost steady Doctor Who. It's not like TOS. It's not like Star Trek. There's a whole freaking hell of a lot more Doctor Who. So there's no way I could sit through and watch every Doctor's every episode unless I was independently wealthy and had absolutely nothing else to do with my life. And even then it would be hard. I've tried to sit through William Hartnell episodes. They're difficult. So my suggestion, and I do like what you guys are saying, but I think my suggestion would be to compile a list of which episodes of which series to watch and watch those first. because you could pretty much completely skip the entire first season of TNG. Unless you're a huge Denise Crosby fan. Then you have to watch because it's... But you could almost skip like the first season of TNG because it was so slow to pick up and Deanna had the worst costumes and all this other stuff. So my suggestion, and I would be happy to compile that list for you. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did a show about that. So I would be happy to compile a list for you, Lasso, of just the episodes you want to watch. The only thing about TOS is the same thing, I think, that happened with me with Doctor Who is part of the problem I always had with Doctor Who and getting into Doctor Who until 2005 was the production value. I couldn't get past the men in the tinfoil suits and the bad stages and all of that. It took me out of the story, so I couldn't get into the story. And when you can't get into the story, what are you going to do? But I got so invested in the characters by watching Christopher Eccleston on that now I can go back and watch old Doctor Who and not worry about the production value because now I'm invested in the characters. So I don't know, Lasso, if you are a stickler for production, then maybe don't watch TOS right away. Okay. Here's something from Travis. Remastered TOS is a must buy. Okay. And I do know that you don't have to buy the entire series. I myself do not have all 3 seasons of TOS. I have a highlights DVD because Amok Time's on there, and Amok Time's my personal favorite. But it's got Amok Time, it's got City on the Edge of Forever, it's got, all the classics. So maybe start off with like a greatest hits DVD of TOS and see if you get into it. Because the other nice thing too, Lasso, is that you have friends who would be more than happy to sit down and fill in the gaps for you. Maybe do some viewing parties. So, I mean, if you want to read over what these guys are shooting, like I said, I don't agree. As much as I love Enterprise, I don't agree starting with Enterprise, even though Enterprise is the prequel. And definitely stay away from DS9. It's also very dark. The difference with DS9 and TOS and TNG, DS9 went really dark. It showed the darker side of, I can't even say humanity because it's not all humanity. It just kind of showed the darker side of the galaxy that wasn't the hopeful, happy future that you got to see more of in TNG and TOS. The other thing too, Lasso, because I know for a fact that you are a fellow Batman 66 fan. And Frank Gorshin was in an incredible episode of TOS called Let This Be Our Last Battlefield. Julie Newmar was in an episode called Friday's Child. On a smaller scale, Amok Time, again, favorite episode. One of the actors in Amok Time was a bank teller in a Joker episode of Batman 66. The episode escapes me. Trying to think I think there's other Batman tie-ins in Star Trek. The thing I've learned, because I'm such a huge fan of 1960s TV, 1950s TV, 1960s TV, is that there just seem to be actors that just completely made their way across Hollywood, just doing guest spots. In fact, T'Pring, Arlene Martel, was on Gunsmoke. She was on my favorite episode of The Monkees. I've just caught her on Hogan's Heroes a couple times. So she was amazing. And I guess it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and somebody posted a meme with all the Star Trek actresses who had breast cancer, and she was actually one of them. She passed away not that long ago. Okay. And see, you caught me. Trek and Wonder Woman, besides obviously Chris Pine. The one that comes to mind for me, and you guys can help me out. I don't know, you guys, if you don't watch the Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, you need to. I have a feeling maybe you guys do or did or should. But Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, 3 seasons of just awesomeness. The one that pops into my head, honestly, that I just thought of today, Tim O'Connor, one of my favorite, absolute favorite episodes of TNG is called The Perfect Mate, which starred, and I always get her name wrong, Jean Grey from the X-Men, Femke Jamison. But Femke was the perfect mate. But the gentleman that escorted her and was in charge of her until the Ferengis put him in sickbay was played by Tim O'Connor, who was in an episode of Wonder Woman, which Lasso's going to tell me the title of because I'm really embarrassed and he might stop talking to me. I cannot remember the name of the damn episode. He played an alien that came down to visit Earth, and he was actually going to destroy it. It was during World War II. It was first season, Wonder Woman, Tim O'Connor. Can't remember the name of the episode. I'm sorry. That's the one that that like really like jumps out at me. Tim was in 2 different Wonder Woman. See, these are things I don't remember. Wasn't the Andros episode a 2-parter? Or am I thinking of another episode that he would Tim O'Connor, somebody also that like completely got around. He was also in a really good episode of MASH. Oh, okay. Here we go. Actually 3, because 1 was the 2-parter. Then he played a different character in a later season. Frank Gorshin was also in Wonder Woman 2. See, Frank Gorshin just really got around. See, I do remember things. So Frank Gorshin's got a tie-in with Wonder Woman and Star Trek and Batman. And Let This Be Our Last Battlefield's an amazing episode. They sort of kind of did a Let This Be Our Last Battlefield-esque episode in season 3 of Enterprise. And again, terrible with titles. It's the one where it was one with the alien race that worshipped the sphere builders. Kind of had the same ending as Let This Be Our Last Battlefield. Trying to think if you guys can help, let me think. I think Tim O'Connor's the one that really stands out to me because, like I said, Perfect Mate was one of my favorite TNG episodes. Gary Lockwood, Sally. There we go. See, I knew you guys would come through for me. Gary Lockwood. Gary Lockwood and Sally Kellerman were in the original Star Trek pilot. No, wait. The second Star Trek pilot where no one has gone before. Which was actually, what was that? Like the 3rd episode, I think. But yeah, Gary Lockwood was actually, I didn't realize this. Gary Lockwood was also in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Was anybody at Vegas 2019? Because they did this, J.G. Hertzler wrote this really incredible opening sketch that had this whole, it actually kind of had this Monty Python thing going with him, and he was dressed up as Martok, and then Bob O'Reilly was Gowron, and they did this whole thing where they came out and acted like they were their mothers, and it was this whole big thing. And then they did this whole thing with Gary Lockwood and the Monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Dominic played the Monolith, which was really funny because he actually put on his American accent. So unless you had insider information or waited around to the end when they announced that it was Dominic Keating, you didn't know. But JG told me. But anyway, it was really funny if anybody saw it. Will Robinson. Yes, Will Robinson was in DS9. Bill Mumy was in the last season of DS9. And when I met him at a convention here in Jersey back in 2017. Yeah, it was 2017. I met him, and he has a picture. One of his 8x10s was in a uniform, and I said, I really should know, but what DS9 or what Trek were you in? And he said, Deep Space Nine last season. I said, oh, did you work with Nicole DeBoer? And he said, I died in her arms. So I immediately went home and watched that episode. That was the one where Nog lost his leg. That was an excellent episode. Yes, the opening ceremony with Gary Lockwood and JG and everybody was on the main stage, and I could tell you it was like 12-ish. It was like the first opening little thing. Yeah. Oh, was that the name of the episode, Travis? The Siege of AR-58. Okay. Yeah, that was the episode. There was nothing so painful as when Nal got shot in the leg and that howl that he made. It was heartbreaking. But yeah, I didn't realize that or forgotten, because I've seen every episode of DS9. I'd forgotten that Bill Mamoon was in that. Bill's great. He's hysterical. Creation should ask him to come to a convention. It's not like they haven't asked single one-off people to come to these conventions before. So yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping I answered some of your questions, Magic Lasso. Hopefully I helped you out. But like I said, just if you want to start watching Star Trek, I would be happy to recommend a couple of really, really good episodes. Not sure the one with Sally Kellerman's the best. It's kind of dry. And it's the same thing with the Menagerie. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the Menagerie either. Forgive me, Chris Hunter. But there are definitely some really good episodes. And like I said, I think the guest stars in it, the people that you recognize from other shows, I think might help while you're watching it, because they're familiar faces. And the one with Julie Newmar is great. I really like that one. So do you have any other questions that I might be able to help you with, or is there anything you guys want to talk about domestic and Travis? I will say the one thing I forgot to mention, because y'all know that I'm a complete addict to the STLV website, is that, in case you haven't heard, they did add Penny Johnson Gerald to the guest list. For those of you that don't know, speaking of Deep Space Nine, she played Cassidy Yates. And she also is the doctor on the Orville, which I can't wait. I just read an article. Orville's going back into filming in December. So hopefully they will have their third season out. Hulu hasn't said whether there's going to be a fourth season, but the third season's, I guess they're going to be shooting for sometime in 2021, depending on how well production goes. Travis, that actually, and this kills me to this day, and I've mentioned this on the show before. That's the question that he answered for me for the podcast, but something got foobarred with the recording. Because what happened was, I was going to ask him there and tape it, but he lost his voice by Wednesday because Aaron talked to everybody. So he had no voice, and he didn't want to do me an injustice by not having the best voice for the podcast. So I didn't talk to him until the Wednesday after STLV ended, and the recording got completely foobarred. But that's what we were talking about, was the PTSD Paper Moon episode, and how even at the time, because PTSD really didn't even have a name back when he did that episode. Yes, City on the Edge of Forever is definitely one I would highly recommend. That actually has Joan Collins in it. Magic Lasso. It's an incredible time travel episode where you have to find out about the sacrifices that you have to make, and not messing with the timeline comes into play. So yeah, that's an excellent episode of TOS. And like I said, I am here for you. This is part of what I like to do. I like to share my fandoms with people and kind of bring them in. Wait. Oh, yes. I had heard that PTSD used to be called shell shock. That's back in my grandfather's day. My grandfather actually suffered from PTSD from World War II. That's funny. Very, very funny. Haha. That's great. Let's see, what else can we talk about? I mean, we have hit the half-hour mark, which is always my goal for hanging out, is just getting to that 10:30, like the 30-minute mark, because I feel like That's a really good place to end if it's time to end. But I don't want Lasso to feel like he hasn't had a chance to ask questions. I love the fact that after all this time that you're interested in Star Trek. But I will give you another plug because I adore you. He is, in my opinion, a comic book king. Lasso helped me find a Flash comic book that I've been looking for since I was about 10 years old, that got accidentally destroyed. And I just described the cover, and not 5 minutes later, he said, "Is this it? Because this is what you need." He gave me the, I almost said episode number, and that's not right. The issue number. And he told me how to find it. And I went to New York Comic Con and I found it. Not only did I find it, but I got one of the inkers to sign it because he did East Coast Comic Con a couple months later. So I now, not only have I replaced that comic book that I've needed for so many years, I'm not even going to mention, but I got it signed, and it was all for Magic Lasso's help. So I highly, 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 highly recommend that you check out Lasso's channel, because if you're into comic books, it's amazing. Or if you're thinking about getting into comic books, he can do for you what I'm trying to do for him right now. Let's see. What is Domestic saying? It's the Guardian. Oh no. Is the Guardian going to be allowed at STLV? I'm not sure I understand the question, to be perfectly honest. Oh, wait. Oh, because they're not doing, gotcha. Because it's not CBS anymore. If somebody wants to make a paper mache archway and not call it the Guardian, but yeah, you're right. Now that CBS is completely lost, or they've lost the CBS license, probably not. What do I know about Star Trek and comic books? A, you're welcome. B, Star Trek and comic books. Yeah, I think IDW has it now. I think it's kind of been like a Star Wars kind of thing where it's sort of hopped around, and because because there are so many different series to play with, I think the comic books have kind of played with the series themselves. I would have to research that a little more and maybe ask around to other Star Trek friends. I can tell you this. There's a thing in Star Trek called the Mirror Universe, which was, again, another episode that I would recommend in TOS, which is called Mirror Mirror, where a transporter accidentally sends them, they swap places and they accidentally end up in an alternate universe. And this alternate universe, they never visited, they never went to it in TNG. In Deep Space Nine, it was very popular. They went to the Mirror Universe a lot, and they got to explore a lot of different options there, including some girl-on-girl kissing between the non-visitor and Nicole DeBoer, which was very risque and scandalous back then. And then they did an episode in Enterprise. I don't think they did anything in Voyager with the Mirror Universe, but it was really big. Like I said, it was huge in DS9. They kept jumping back and forth. And because Enterprise is a prequel, they got cute because technically nobody had heard of the Mirror Universe until TOS. They had to do something. They wanted to do something in Enterprise, but it had to be separate from what's called the Prime Universe, what's called the Prime Universe, because obviously otherwise TOS would have known about it. So what they did was they just did in the 4th season of Enterprise, they did a 2-episode Mirror Universe where they didn't interact with the counterparts. In our universe, it was just strictly 2 hours of Mirror Universe stuff, which was awesome because those 2 episodes, In a Mirror Darkly, parts 1 and 2, at the very end, Hoshi, one of the communications officer in the Prime Universe, but Hoshi declared herself emperor of the Terran Enterprise, the Terran Empire, at the end of In a Mirror Darkly. And now Georgiou, who is on Discovery, and she is actually in the Prime Universe, but she's actually the Mirror Universe version of Georgiou. A lot of people are speculating that she is a descendant of Empress Hoshi, and everybody's waiting to find out if that's the case, because they haven't really come out and said it. But again, they actually referenced, they actually made an Enterprise reference in this week's Discovery, which I was very excited about. It was a First Contact reference / Enterprise reference, which I thought was great, in reference to the Mirror Universe. I, unfortunately, Travis, this is really cool. I never got a picture with the Guardian. But yeah, I don't think, since Creation doesn't, let's get back on this before we close the show. Since Creation doesn't have the CBS licensing anymore, things have changed. It's not Quark's Bar, it's Jimmy's Bar, or Jimmy's Speakeasy, or Jimmy something, which is a homage to Jimmy Doohan. Just like, you know, they have the DeForest Kelley Theater, and now they've got Jimmy's Place. I think it's called Jimmy's Place. So they can't call it Quark's Bar. I doubt that we're going to see any of those really cool. I'm just glad that I got in the regeneration display and the agonizing chamber and all this other stuff, because we're probably not going to see any of those cool things again, at least not in Vegas for Creation. Chase Masterson was pushing it at STLV to understand why CBS doesn't want to participate. Okay. CBS has sold the license. It's not that they don't want to participate. It's that they no longer want Creation to be doing the official conventions. That's an interesting question, where the trouble is going to be called. Again, I'm not sure how much they can. I'm not sure what Creation's going to have to do. The reason it's not called the Star Trek Las Vegas Convention anymore is because CBS owns that as well. So the only Star Trek convention that can be called an official Star Trek convention is one that CBS has granted the license to. They took it away from Creation, but they gave it to somebody else, from my understanding. So it's not that official Star Trek conventions are ended. They're just going to be under somebody else's purview. So Creation can do whatever they want as far as hosting a convention, and they can host a Star Trek themed convention. They just can't call it a Star Trek convention, and that's what they've chosen to do with the 55-year mission. So for me, going to these conventions isn't about going, yes, the agonizing chamber and the transporter pads and all that licensing stuff was fun and cool. And like I said, I'm really glad at this point that I got my pictures with the ones that I did. But it's about seeing the people, both actor-wise and all of my friends who I've made over the past 3 years, and the vendors that I'm fond of. And let us not ever forget, it's in Vegas. And for me, I love Vegas. And there you go. Just call them fur balls. Just call them fuzzy fur balls of love. I don't know. But so, yes, there are things that are going to change, and there are things that I'm going to be disappointed about. But overall, for me, the fact that it's in Vegas, the fact that I get to see all these amazing people that I usually only get to see once a year, and for me, that's really enough. And if and when whomever CBS sold the license to announces an official Star Trek convention, and it is somewhere other than Las Vegas, I will be more than happy to go to the officially licensed Star Trek convention as well, so that I can once again get my pictures on transporter pads and agonizing chambers. Which, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know, speaking of Mirror Universe, Dr. Phlox and Major Reed did invent the agonizing chamber, which got used. See, this is the reason why you don't watch Enterprise first. Ooh, and I'm losing my green screen. These are the reasons that you don't watch Enterprise first. The agonizing chamber was, of course, the first time we ever saw it was in the first Mirror Universe episode, which was Mirror, Mirror, and TOS. And then flash forward into Enterprise era, and you find out that it's been invented by Major Reed and Dr. Phlox. So these are the little things where I would rather go, oh, that is so cool, and kind of have that, and kind of like have that backwards little thing, like, oh, that's where it came from. So that's why personally I would not watch Enterprise first, even though technically if you sit down and look at an actual Star Trek universe timeline, Enterprise predates it all. So anyway, those are just my feelings on why you don't start with Enterprise. Besides, save the best for last. Anyway, guys, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for participating. I always have so much fun on Monday nights while you're here, and this is why I do what I do, because I love sharing a half an hour or 40 minutes of Star Trek with all of you amazing people. Magic Lasso, your questions were awesome. Thank you so much. And we will definitely talk if find out how interested you are in, spending some quarantining time watching Star Trek and getting into Star Trek. So guys, thank you again so much. Follow me on social media so you can always know what it is I'm doing and what's happening. We're coming up on the holidays, so I've got to think of some holiday themed shows, obviously. So again, thank you all for coming. I will see you all next week. And until then, please live long and prosper.
Nicole DeBoer, and you've been listening to the NX7062 podcast.